And speaking also of Huawei, this could be a defining moment for the telecom giant. New Zealand Prime Minister in the latest has said that the country will independently assess the risks due to China's telecom giant. Huawei, the world's biggest telecom equipment producer, has been facing the heat for alleged links with China's government. The US has accused the company of attempting to spy on other countries through its gadgets, but now Huawei can breathe a sigh of relief. Two countries have softened their stance, Britain and New Zealand. Take a listen in.
Well, look, we are still in the middle of a process in New Zealand, but I'm happy to explain to you the process that we go through, which is really vendor neutral. Essentially, anyone, in this case, an application was made by Spark within New Zealand around what they wanted to do with 5G technology. Our GCSB makes an assessment of that and then goes back to them and says, here are some concerns. You have an opportunity to mitigate them. So we're in the middle of a process there. But ultimately, that legislation and framework exists in order to protect New Zealand's interests and individuals' data and privacy. And so that's, as I say, something that's vendor neutral, but an important process.
This was the Prime Minister at the Davos summit. Yes, she said there will not be any discrimination against Huawei, but she also rejected a request from the local telecom service provider to use Huawei's 5G equipments. In November, 3 months later, New Zealand has made a U-turn, and that change comes after Britain concluded that it can mitigate risks due to Huawei. After all, there is no proof against the tech giant. New Zealand is part of the Five Eyes Intelligence Alliance. Its partners, Australia, Canada, the UK and the US, have taken a hard stance on Huawei. Now, with Britain changing its stance, New Zealand has also followed suit. This decision has put New Zealand in a spot of bother. Ardern's earlier decision to ban Huawei now looks premature. China is a major trading partner for New Zealand. Any major confrontation will hurt New Zealand where it hurts the most, that's the economy. Earlier this month, the New Zealand Prime Minister was accused of being close to Beijing. The other members of the Five Eyes Intelligence Cooperation questioned the presence of New Zealand in the group as well. And now she faces criticism for reacting against Huawei too early. Neighbour Australia and the US, in fact, are not likely to appreciate New Zealand's Huawei U-turn. And that brings us to China. The Xi Jinping government is likely to view New Zealand with suspicion from now on for Huawei. New Zealand's softened stance represents a success. It could set the stage for other countries to revoke their ban on the company. But ban or no ban, the Huawei headache has become a political double whammy for New Zealand. The seeds of mistrust have been sown in the bilateral ties. It's not only Huawei, though, that's causing a rift in China-New Zealand bilateral ties. Huawei is just the tipping point. The much spoken about Year of Chinese Tourism event has been postponed indefinitely. Several analysts in New Zealand working on China have alleged that they are being watched and threatened by China. What's more, the Prime Minister of New Zealand has also postponed her visit to Beijing.
Perhaps the strain in bilateral ties between China and New Zealand is evidenced by this. A government airline, Air New Zealand, was forced in mid-air to return to Auckland. The flight's destination was Shanghai. Reason? Administrative issues. Speculation? China is angry with New Zealand because the flight clearance paperwork included a reference to Taiwan.
I saw online reports saying that it never registered, so I think the flight to China is illegal and breached the regulations. They themselves noted this issue and made a U-turn.
Academics and analysts who write about China's foreign policy have alleged harassment at home in New Zealand. Interference by China is a major political issue in Australia and New Zealand. China is economically crucial for Wellington. And New Zealand often plays it safe when it comes to China because total trade between New Zealand and China is worth 27 billion New Zealand dollars. Any tension in relationships with China means economic turmoil for the island nation. Jacinda Ardern, New Zealand's Prime Minister, and China both say that bilateral relations remain strong.
Maintaining a healthy and stable development of China-New Zealand relations is in the common interest of the two countries and their people. China is willing to promote the continued development of bilateral relations on the basis of mutual respect, equality and mutual benefit.
On the ground, though, the realities are changing dynamically. There are rumors that China is discouraging its citizens from touring New Zealand. China says that these are just safety notices, but the timing of these notices seems to be politically driven. Last year, New Zealand named China openly as a threat to peace in South China Sea. China hit back with a complaint. China puts New Zealand's criticism to its membership in the Five Eyes intelligence network. Beijing's strategy of making hostile comments while talking peace has led to political tension. There are allegations that China is funding parties in New Zealand to protect its interests. Opposition leaders are piling the blame on the Prime Minister. Jacinda Ardern needs to revisit Wellington's ties with Beijing. China is crucial for New Zealand's economy, but it cannot be allowed to rig the politics of the island nation. Huawei aside, New Zealand's ties with China are delicately balanced, and maintaining the relationship while not ceding strategic ground will define Jacinda Ardern, the youngest woman head of state in the world at the moment.